All right, how's it going, folks? Welcome back here to a Friday. It is 10:25 a.m. California time here. Hope everyone's having a wonderful day. Start of the weekend is upon us. August 8th, 2025 is the date. Latest activity here on the globe shows looks like a 1.4 up into Alaska. Also, a little bit of movement here around the New Madrid seismic zone in the red circle, 2.3 earthquake. This is a major seismically hazardous zone there. In fact, that earthquake coming in right within that New Madrid zone. Now, what this area is, it's a long ways away from the plates, right? So this is an intra-plate earthquake zone. Basically, it's a geological feature here that formed back, supposedly millions of years ago when the North American plate tried to split apart to create a rift zone. So this is pretty much a zone of weak crust, and there's compresses and stresses there that stir up in the area just due to the overall plate tectonics and movement. But this used to be tried to be a rift zone out here. Anyway, we do get big earthquake activity out here. Been a while since I've chatted about this zone, and I just want to show you guys here real quick that that big earthquake activity that struck back in 1811 and 1812. We actually seen a series of 7.0 earthquakes up to about a 7.5. There's some speculation here that it could have been up in the 8 range. It caused quite a bit of damage out here. It caused portions of the Mississippi River to run backwards there. I can only imagine a time in today's time where we would see something of that magnitude. Again, it's unlike the areas where you accumulate stress and strain across the California, for example, or the Cascadia subduction zone. This is pretty much a weak area in the crust, but man, it's subject to earthquake activity, and some of that movement can be large. The question is, are we looking at a time here where we could be talking about something like that again soon? That's a good question. Last 30 days of earthquake activity out here shows about 25 earthquakes here. There's a 3.1 a couple days ago. I believe that's going to be the largest. And then, of course, we got today's event there, a 2.3. About 5 miles deep underneath this area. Most of these faults are obviously ancient and old, buried as well, but they're there, and that's why it's a major. This is pretty much the most dangerous area out here in terms of earthquake potential, east of the Rockies. There is an area down here across the Carolinas that has produced big earthquakes as well, but kind of focusing in on that just because we've got earthquake activity out here right now, and the North American plate has been moving quite a bit here. Got to remember when things kind of shuffle up out here from that 8.8 there a number of days ago. It basically put the North American plate here into motion. When things happen out here across the area of Russia and the Kuril-Kamchatka Trench, it shifts the plate, no doubt, and then you get the adverse effects here across the North American plate. And that's when we can see things stir up. California has definitely been somewhat active as well here in the last 7 days. This is a 2.5 map and above. That's actually quite a bit of earthquake activity just for a week's time period for the level of 2.5 and above. Today I don't see anything in there, but in the last week there are a number of upper threes, including some right around the San Andreas Fault and just right on it here it looks like. Seen a couple earthquakes there in the 2 and 3 range along with some other magnitudes. Also a little swarm to the west, another swarm further west here. We also had a little bit of activity stirring up in the swarm fashion down south here across the Brawley seismic zone. So still keeping an eye on it. There is a number of earthquakes around the San Andreas Fault today, but as I noted, nothing above 2.5. Just general small microquake activity out there. A couple of quakes around the San Andreas Fault there from yesterday. It's a little quiet out here today, but don't let your guard down. Pacific Northwest as well, pretty quiet. As we head inland, a couple smaller quakes there around Yellowstone. Let's go ahead and check out Mount Rainier, though. I tend to be focusing in on that because of all the earthquake activity recently. It shows one earthquake there from yesterday, so let's go see what's going on from the Pacific Northwest Seismic Network. By the way, tremor activity yesterday was 268 events underneath Washington area, and that's where it's been here in the last week or so. Starting to fill in there across the center portion of the Cascadia. All right, want to check out the Mount Rainier Volcano map and see what we got here for seismograph stations. This is the one that shouldn't be messed with or tampered with. Should show us everything that's going on. So supposedly there was one earthquake at 11:21 yesterday, right? Yesterday's time period. We would have to go back to previous UTC time here and see what we got. I'm going to be thinking, well, hold on a second here. Yeah, that's 11:21. Has been reviewed, so it is a legit earthquake. 18:21 UTC time. So yeah, that's in about an hour. But man, I am. See, it may be 18:21. A good possibility it could be this little spike right here. This is another earthquake, and these are all earthquakes as well. I'm wondering why they decided to count this little one, but not count all these other ones out here. Let's check out today's time period, see what we got here in the last few hours. There's a local earthquake as well, but they didn't count that late last night. Here's another earthquake, local event. A couple more in here. So we still have earthquake activity occurring up there across the Mount Rainier Volcano, although it's calmed down, but also the lack of reporting here. It seems like they're only wanting to report a number of earthquakes. But man, look at this. They've readjusted the amplitudes here. I don't know what's going on with that. If you look in the last couple days, it looked like that. Everything was squashed. These are earthquakes, but you can barely see them. You can see this is like a digital adjustment that happens every, I don't know, 10 hours or so. But that's nothing of any importance. But in the last couple days, like I said, I was wondering why the amplitude has been squashed so much. This reminds me of like an audio file, right? And that's basically what earthquakes are. They pick up the vibration and the tone, so to speak, of the release during that earthquake. And it shows up on a graph here, but this is just squashed. This is like having an AM radio with no defining audio frequency as far as bass, treble, or mid-range goes. So, but now it looks like, if we go back to today's events, it looks like maybe they fixed it. I do have quite a few USGS viewers out here that actually work for the USGS quite a bit. So maybe they tuned into one of my videos here. I'm glad they did, because guess what? Now you can see more of the earthquake activity, more defining. And this is kind of the area where the swarming has been migrating towards the north. If you go back here in the last 30 days, and by the way, this is just the pinpointed numbers they can get, and this doesn't actually cover all of them. The swarm started, it started the early morning hours of the 8th of July, so we're past that 30-day period, but there was about 1,100 located events, but technically close to 11,000 earthquakes there that were, 80% couldn't be located, but there's still, that was an enormous event. But we did watch migration here. See all this movement up north away from the summit area? So that is rather interesting. That's why I wanted to look at the seismograph station up here to the northeast where that swarm is migrating to. And you can definitely see that this swarm has not died down, and the earthquake activity is, like I say, for every, on here, if I were to actually individually count every single one of these, there's probably 60 or so. Yeah, these are obviously some bigger events. Not big, but I'm thinking that one, because I know that quake did show up on the previous seismograph station I showed you as well, and that sits to the southeast of here, on the different side of the volcano, southwest side of the volcano. Excuse me. But it did show up, and a lot of these other quakes are very local to the seismograph station. So what's going on here is the swarm. Let me show you where that seismograph station is again here. I guess we better go back here and show you the map real quick. That seismograph station's right up here. The other one further to the southwest. So whatever's going on with this migration, definitely showing more of a pattern of seismicity on that graph. And it is still, like I said, kicking up here. I'm just glad they adjusted it back to how it should be. I mean, really, think about that. The difference between this, which shows, I mean, hello, you can't see anything on here. This is the proper way to display and be transparent when it comes to volcanoes or anywhere there's should be Earth monitored events. And as you can see here, folks, the swarm continues here, specifically around the northeastern side of this volcano. So again, another 60 earthquakes or so to add to the 10,000 something. And don't believe I'm not making up that number here. If you go over to their blog here from the Pacific Northwest Seismic Network, you can see they mention that themselves here. Total detection count for this preliminary catalog sits at 10,834. This was put out a couple days ago here. But it's continuing. They kind of talk here about the migration of the swarm, a couple different patterns. In fact, you can see it here on this map. Meters north, there was a northward movement. See that? And then one going south here. Meters east from left to right. But it kind of followed a weird pattern. And they say it's consistent there with fluid movement or diffusion. Let me read that real quick. Got this too big. Fluid flow or diffusion model in which seismicity spreads outwards as fluid expands away from an initial point. So interesting, right? That's something, like I say, we haven't seen in at least in history here since we've been monitoring volcanoes and earthquakes. 10,000 something. Add another. Who knows how many couple hundreds? We're well over 11,000, I'm sure. So it's interesting, but it's also interesting to note here that they stopped reporting it. So technically this number didn't go down. It went down in terms of located events out here. That's why it's not showing anything. That's why it's only showing technically one earthquake up here on the map. But I can guarantee you that is just an illusion. One earthquake from yesterday? Yeah. Anyway, I'm glad they got the seismograph station up there and working properly. We can kind of keep an eye on that. I'm thinking the reason why they stopped counting them is because of the continuation here, and it does take, it takes a human review to pinpoint and locate each and every single one of these events. That's why they can't count 10,800 and something events here. They've only counted about 20% of them, if that. Anyway, earthquake activity still continuing there. Nothing changing, though. I mean, if we were looking at magma coming up, we'd see probably deeper quakes as that magma pushes up through the rock. But according to them, it's only the magma chamber, only about 30% molten. All right. Backing out of here, a couple smaller quakes around Yellowstone. Nothing big going on. Oil fields of Texas, out in Oklahoma as well. There's our new Madrid seismic zone quake. A little swarm down here, 5 o'clock this morning in Arkansas, outside of Strawberry, Arkansas. Interesting. I wonder if they have strawberries out there. Possibility. I wonder if they have oil fields out there. I remember cruising out here during one of my storm chases, seeing some oil fields. And they're normally easy to spot when there's a whole bunch of heavy vegetation out here, such as the trees and stuff. But let's see here. A couple of these earthquakes occurring out here. Hard to say, though. I don't see any specific oil fields out here unless they're been wiped away from the map. Nothing noted here on the map here as far as any named oil fields, which sometimes they do show. But anyway, that's kind of sits outside the new Madrid seismic zone. There's been, like I said, a number of earthquakes out here recently. You got to watch that when the North American plate is on the move, which it has been. And the time that has passed since a big earthquake out here, they could be coming up. 2025 has been rather interesting here, but we'll continue to watch that, folks, because, again, there's a reason why they have this highlighted out like that. It's a major seismically hazardous zone. All right, across the rest of the globe here, the planet, the flat-scale model Earth, whichever you prefer. Largest quake so far here today and in the last 24 hours, excuse me, goes to a 5.3 out around the Indonesia area. Now, notice here on the map that we got a number of deep quakes up here into the Izu Trench. That's a major subduction zone. And these two quakes here are really deep. 260 and 270 miles deep here for a 4.3 and a 4.1. These are from yesterday, one from last night, but notice this morning here we're getting some further shallow adjustment upstream with a 4.7 shallower around the Japan Trench. So the pressure is getting it's increasing out here. across the area. There's nothing showing up here yet. Well, it does look like there was a 4.3 here around our swarm area. So that's a sign here. Normally when things happen out here across the eastern area of this plate and the deeper quakes are triggered, that further pressurizes this area here around the northwestern corner and potentially here the southwestern corner of the Filipino plate. Let me show you guys here real quick on the general stress flow. Notice the Pacific plate here moving off to the northwest, slamming into and subducting underneath the Filipino plate here. That's this area. That increases further strain out here against the western area of that plate. And that's why we're seeing, and it shows here, 4.3 south of the Nankai Trough. We do have to watch that. And it's been pretty active out here. Let's go check out the Japan Meteorological Agency real quick. See if a swarm is kicked up at all. There is a... Are you home? Oh, scared me. I thought there was a ghost in here. All right, that's just Missy Mimi's coming in. So there's a 4.3 this morning. That's the Tokara Islands area. That's where the swarm's been happening across that area recently, concerning possibly, concerning the potential for a big megaquake across that subduction zone. It's been over a month, but that swarm, you can still see portions of it here. And that's where we got that newer activity today, that 4.3. So pressure is increasing in that area. I don't see any big swarm uptick yet, but do have to watch that region closely. The clustering going on up here in the Russia area. A lot of aftershock activity, right? Still 22 earthquakes. Total tally here in the last month, 862, including the large 8.8 earthquake, along with one 7-pointer, but that wasn't an aftershock. That was a foreshock, and many 6-pointers were foreshocks as well. Pretty crazy, huh? Remember when I was talking about this, how this looks eerily similar to Japan megaquake activity, and I said that when we were having all this foreshock activity, and sure enough, a big one hit. That's when that 8.8 struck. So 7.4, the largest foreshock. As far as the largest aftershock goes, that goes to a 6.9 here. That followed just not quite an hour from the 8.8. Number of 6s as well. Again, a lot of those were foreshocks. Quite a few aftershocks as well, but that's continuing. That could continue for weeks, if not months, if not years there. No migration southward. Let's see. Well, we got another 3.7 up here. That's north of the quake that happened this morning. So all that adjustment here definitely adding strain across this area to the west, northwest. And it does look like it's adjusted some areas up here along this section of the plate. Let's see what else we have here. Nothing major going on across that area. New Zealand still watching this zone, 3.2 in between South and North Island. Kind of a moderate day right now. Wouldn't doubt it if something big happens right after I say, okay guys, have a good day, see you later. It never fails. But let's go ahead and check out space weather activity here real quick. Actually, I want to look at Hawaii, see what's going on. I know the eruption has come to a halt. That means that we should start building back up again here in terms of inflation. Let's see what we got. Yeah, there's our end of the eruption going straight back up. That's the inflation going on here. No change, but there was a couple new fissures opened up there south of the north vent. So, but as of right now, I still think things are gonna go as planned, or as they have been going for the last 30 episodes there since December of last year. Quick glance up there at the summit area of the webcam. Volcanic gases waiting on the next eruption here, which will obviously happen in quite a few days, not anytime soon. Space weather activity got some, looks like some C flare, maybe close to M flare happening right now. Pretty darn close, but over the last couple days here, we've had a number of M flares. That's off of a sunspot area. Back over across the western limb. Check this out, it's starting to flare. Also another area down there. This area, like I said, about ready, I think, to produce maybe some X-flare activity, but it is getting close to being out of sight, out of mind here off the western limb. These are all further moving off that way. We're left with a whole bunch of sunspots on the visible side, but there's not a whole lot of major complex sunspots. This one degraded overnight. Really not too concerned with that anymore. And all these other weak sunspots up here, really not capable of producing anything significant. So got this main area right here that's been throwing off a bunch of M and C flare activity, as well as this one. But those are, again, just about out of sight, out of mind. Aurora activity, well, it's starting to kick up right now. Let's see what we got here for the wind speed data and whatnot. BT, BZ component, that's a good sign, opened up, pointing south. There's a negative, see that? So that's a southward pointing component, negative 7.8. That's allowing the auroras to amplify here. You can see that on the map. The high-speed solar wind stream did come in here recently, so it looks like it's a little bit late and wrong timing for the North American side. But it looks like across other areas there where people may be sleeping, you got some aurora potential. That may continue into the night here for the North American side. The detailed forecast right here shows you guys the possibilities. Like I say, it came in a little late, so we'll see what happens here for the remainder of the day and night. We'll check back on that a little bit later. But we'll check for that. Again, flare threat, 55% chance for M flare. X flare, around 10% chance. Also a 25% chance there of some protons kicking towards the planet. We'll see if that takes place or not. As far as any close approach asteroids out here, we do have a couple big ones, some building size asteroids there. 3 million miles away, though. That's good. I guess the closest one here going to be a 50-foot house-size asteroid, but even then, that's pretty safe here. So no close approaches in the forecast for now. Storm Prediction Center got severe weather back across areas of the north. That brings with it a little 5% chance for some tornado activity. 2% there in the green. Wind and hail threats included in that. A real quick glance here at the tropics and the potential, maybe, hurricanes that are coming up. This is the lower level dynamics here showing the wind. Watch out towards the Atlantic here. See if anything forms. I know there's supposed to be something forming. It's back to how it originally was, showing a southward movement here, potentially into the Gulf, hitting Florida there as a major hurricane. Look at that. But this is way different from last night. Last night it showed it super massive and then clipping the eastern seaboard here. This could all change. The key importance in this is that the models are definitely picking up on something forming out there mid-month. So we'll continue to check back on it. I think it'd be foolish to ignore this and not, and just wait 2 days beforehand and say, yeah, now we got a hurricane coming. It's always good to just see what the models are forecasting for long term. This could definitely change by tonight, but I am going to keep an eye on this each time I do an update. All right, seismograph stations out there. One little earthquake. Actually, a couple there in Northern California. Some in Russia there, but the small ones in Northern California, they pop off and on all day long. There's definitely some smaller quake activity occurring up here, but for whatever reason, unlike down Southern California, when you have a little microquake here, they report them. They report all of them, including these little 0.6s and whatnot. But Northern California, it seems like there's a threshold here to where they choose not to report anything. Well, I mean, there's one right there they reported in Oregon, but for the most part, it seems like it's 2.0 and above out here. And these earthquakes aren't anywhere near 2-pointer, but it's some earthquake activity local to that station. Anyway, we'll check back on this later this evening, folks. We'll catch you guys out here soon if something major happens. Enjoy your Friday. We'll see you guys out here for the Friday night update. Take care.